you felt like he always knew where the adventure was going. Like you're saying, well, I'm looking for buried treasure, and he'll just say like third drawer on the left in the fifth room on the castle in the castle. And then like you go for like 6 months and you're sort of led to other countries and then you finally get to the castle.
Hi, welcome to Math Life Balance. This video is part of a series of interviews with people who popularize mathematics. And today our guest is Richard Schwartz, professor of mathematics in Brown University. And Richard is primarily a researcher, working in particular in geometric group theory and dynamical systems, but also an author of amazing books for children, such as You Can Count on Monsters and Life on the Infinite Farm. So how did you get to the idea to make children's books about math?
Well, I think it came from using Xfig to illustrate my math papers. Xfig was an old drawing program that you could draw simple figures with polygons and circles and things like that. And I always enjoyed making the pictures for my papers, and I also like to draw, sort of just with a pen and paper. And then I had kids. Maybe that's probably the biggest. So at some point, like my daughter, my older daughter Lucina was about 5, and I wanted to make her a little book about primes. And it was funny, like it was a book at first, just this little hand drawn thing. But then when I got on the computer, I got carried away and I just started drawing pictures and arranging them in a grid. And my wife reminded me and said, "Well, look, it was supposed to be a book." And so I kind of put them in sequence, and then I sent it off to AK Peters, who was a um, great math publisher at the time. Um, Company's out of business now, and like they said yes, like within a day or something. It was a really great experience. So that
Wow.
was sort of how the first one started, and then one kind of led to another. And I mean, having young kids around was kind of a big stimulation.
Did they make any funny comments about it?
No, I don't know. I mean, my daughter said something. Like the latest books are more, they're hand drawn. They're just black, just India ink or something on paper. And so she said, "Well, you're entering your kind of mature phase now," like that. The older, some of the ones on the colored books are really I like kind of really bright colors, vibrant colors, but then somehow I also like drawing by hand, just black and white. And one of my daughters really loves the younger one, Lil. Who's a chemistry grad student now. She loves this thing called the Morse 2e sequence. Um, and it's like you start with 0, and then you go 0, 1, and then you go 0, 1, 1, 0, and then you go 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. So however much you've built of the thing, you then reverse all the digits and put it at the end. And this is actually a kind of it's a sequence that sometimes people who have some obsessive compulsive tendencies discover on their own, because it's all about balance. Like you do the left and then you have to do the right, but then you think, well, I did the left first and the right second, so I have to correct this by doing the right first and the left. But then somehow, like if this kind of never stops. So anyway, I think she had discovered this sequence on her own, and as do some people who have some tendencies like that. And then so I sort of made a book where that was like the one that's the latest one, which isn't published. It's one of the main themes in it is the Morse 2e sequence and how you see it in all kinds of different contexts. So yeah, so anyway, she was really happy about that. That book.
Oh,
Um,
this is funny.
and I mean, but I mean, so anyway, so that was my inspiration. I think initially in early days was um kids. And I mean, I think like I also just like to draw. I mean, I've kind of sometimes I've written a few like kind of philosophy sort of books too. Like one of them is about just like alien life and what aliens might be like and how they might think about things. And another one is sort of a kind of a philosophical book about Occam's razor. And I like to draw, so I sort of make these things, and I don't think I'll publish them. I mean, I wrote one called Man versus Dog, which was about sort of my conflict with the family, my wife's family dog. Mm, We hated each other, and so that's some kind of a book which is describing the situation. Um, I wrote one about the Star Trek transporter problem and one about a toaster that comes to life. So I sort of have like a lot of interest in storytelling and drawing, but then it's not the it's only really the math books I feel like I can publish.
So, how do you come up with these crazy cool visualizations? Like, is there something you can put into words, or it's just pure inspiration? And
Well, actually, I feel like I'm not such a great I mean, I like colors, so I like really vivid colors. And with black and white, I really like kind of patterns, like the sort of thing like you might see on a go board, like black and white, very swirling patterns. I like kind of psychedelic and patterns like that. And yeah, they just, I just sort of think like, yeah, this would look really cool on the page. I actually feel like I'm not such a good drawer. I'm sort of like a good reviser. Like I'll draw something maybe poorly or something, and then I'll I'll spend a lot of time. I mean, in this hand drawn book I made, for example, it's maybe 150 pages long, and I probably made like 1,000 pages. Like I went through about like 1,000 pages of drawings just before, like it was sort of like a Groundhog Day kind of workflow. Like as soon as if I make a mistake, I just tear it up and I just start fresh. So I sort of find like it's really. I mean, I'm also like pretty obsessive of myself, so I don't mind the um kind of intensive labor. Like I kind of get into it and I'm happy just when I'm into it, I'm just happy doing it all day. And I don't know where the images come from, just but like there's some kind of drive. Like I think my math is like that too, where it's like an itch I have to scratch. Like I just want to finish things or something. I don't know if you
this is
feel
so
that
funny.
way.
People typically don't describe obsessive tendencies as happily sitting the whole day doing something. Like happily, the word happily is unusual in this context.
Yeah, but it's like this feeling like you don't wanna be doing anything else or something. It's like, I don't know, I have this feeling like I'm like if I'm I mean, sometimes, I might be idle and I'm not doing anything or just watching Netflix or something like that, but then, like, if I'm really working on something, like I was working on some paper when I was in Europe recently, and, then I was, like, working on it while we were waiting to get on the plane. I just sat down and, in the 5 minutes I had to just so there's just this kind of feeling of, like, I have to do it.
So I guess you're very focused on what you do. Mm.
Yeah, 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 I kind of sequential monomania. Like whatever the thing is, I just really wanna do it. So I mean, I don't know, it is a lot of. I mean, it's sort of. I feel like this is maybe something which is good for people to know, and just that, like, it's not your first draft that's necessarily good, and you have to get past this idea that, like, things can be improved. It's not like you just start writing and it flows out and it's some beautiful thing. I mean, it's often like just it's really a lot of kind of polishing and revising and things like that. That somehow so like somehow I feel like like I think maybe when I was a kid, I didn't think I could do any kind of drawing at all, and it was because I wasn't naturally. I didn't feel like I was naturally talented at it. But somehow I um just between like just on the other hand, you can do it as many times as you want, and so you can save the best one.
Are you hinting at doing math somehow secretly?
It's most of math is failure, I'd say. I mean, as a researcher, as researchers, I'd say probably we have pretty low success rates usually. But fortunately, we're not given specific tasks that we have to do. It's like, if we do anything, people are happy, I think. So like you might set out to do one thing and then, you don't succeed. And, I think like, people try all kinds of problems and then just every once in a while something works. And then you say, look, I did this thing. So yeah, I feel like math is kind of like that too. I mean, it's a lot of. I mean, it's like this. Yeah, kind of just trying things repeatedly, and yeah. So I think it's a common personality trait.
So actually, I wanted to ask you something which I think is important given how you described your process. So how do you know when the drawing is done? Like when the page is ready?
Sometimes there might be like with the last book, there was a practical deadline. They wanted it on a certain day, and I had this kind of giant grid of squares on my floor, I just look at the worst one and I'd fix it and, repeat. And at some point, you know, they wanted me to turn it in. I said, okay. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there was a certain kind of balance. Like I didn't look at any picture and think like this isn't that good. I mean, they all seemed, sometimes like you can, I feel like I'll look at it and I'll say, yeah, this is good. I feel like there's some idea I want to get across in the picture or in a set of pictures. And I may feel like, okay, I've really like expressed this well. And
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I love the books that I've seen and read. Does it sometimes happen that you want to like ex- put some mathematics into the book, but you don't know how to visualize it? And what do you do then if it's not obvious to you how to visualize something?
well, I mean, one thing to say is like often I'll pick things which I feel like have a good chance for visualization. So like I'll try to like this book. I recently wrote this book called Playing with Shape and Form, which is about like it's kind of like elementary topology. So that seemed like a kind of a natural thing. I mean, sometimes, sometimes, yeah, I'll get like there'll be various practical problems. Like I can't fit enough detail on the page to explain the concept, or sometimes I'll feel like I don't want to have any jargon in the book. I want these things to be sort of clean so someone can just kind of read it. And so often it's sort of like it's like how do you explain this in sort of like the minimal most efficient way that doesn't rely on background. And I also think a lot about like sort of um the amount of information that people can keep in their minds. Like I mean, like you don't want to read a book that says like recall on page 37 and you're on page 98 that a super manifold is da da da. It's more like you sort of want it to be kind of like an experience, like you're kind of going down a river and stuff is just kind of going by you and you're sort of appreciating as it comes, and then it doesn't matter when it's gone. So it I want to get that kind of experience of just everything is kind of immediate. But then there's making the illustrations. Like what do I do is I just keep trying until I think of something. I don't know if it always works. Um, but like in this latest book, I wanted to prove the Euler formula for surfaces or for triangulations of a sphere. Like faces plus vertices minus edges equals to 2, always for any triangle. And this was how do you you can't get into the details. So there's one kind of argument where like you sort of pull off the edges and then like you check that this doesn't really change the answer. And you kind of prove it like a kind of by disassembly method. So like, this was like one of the ways I did it, where sort of like I didn't really even define things so clearly, but I had to think like, I think especially in writing popular math, there's like this tension between um like rigor, like correctness or something, and versus like accessibility. Often like proofs have edge cases, and which makes it annoying. Like they say, well, what if there's only two triangles or something? There's these sort of various things that, or what if it's just a point? Does that count as a triangulation, or or this kind of question? And so, I sort of had to think like, what's the right balance?
So, what's your approach to this tension? I'm also very curious about it.
I mean, I think it's generally better to be pretty informal and and maybe, you know, in a sentence acknowledge that, that if you really want to see the details, some sort of some fine print to the effect that like, well, if you really want to see it here, that you can look it up in this book or something. You want to give people a good experience of the subject without having them, have to absorb. I mean, mathematicians are pretty used to like absorbing definitions, like let P be a polynomial or something like that. But I think most people are not so much in that spirit. It's more like they want to kind of see like a demo. And I actually think that research math might be better that way. Like if you write a paper, I mean, you want to sort of prove it in general maybe, or but you could just say, well, look, I'm just going to work out like the two-dimensional case, or
Oh,
just
you mean it would be better? Yes,
yeah, it would be better.
totally.
It might be better. Like where you sort of, rather than try to get an airtight type proof, you just say like, okay, well, here's like a few cases, and probably from these cases you can see that something's going to work in general, or or at least have that in the paper. Maybe also have an airtight proof. But I mean, or like induction arguments are like that. Like, it's very kind of painful to absorb an induction argument where you just start with n and then you go to n plus one. Like, it's better to just do like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then and say, well, yeah, and so on. This is this. Instead of once like people absorb the idea, they can just kind of see that one case is going to lead to the next. That might be, I mean, better, especially now. I mean, well, as far as math papers go, I don't want to get too far off the subject, but as far as math papers go, we have like infinite supply. Like the internet is sort of infinite. I mean, you can write a million-page paper if you like and post it on the web. So, I mean, you could have kind of like different versions of the same argument where one is kind of designed to just give the ideas and the other one is, to sort of, be rigorous and, informal, but don't say anything wrong, maybe. Something like that.
Yeah, I think it would be much nicer to read, of course, if there was more intuitive. So do you in your papers try to be more intuitive and write more intuition?
Yeah, I mean, usually I'd say, I mean, I'm basically a, geometer, or, do some dynamics. So like the kind of math I'm attracted to tends to be pretty simple and concrete. So it's easier to do. I mean, there are certain parts of mathematics where it's quite hard to just give like a very concrete, intuitive thing. Like there's some buildup of terminology and ideas that you need to get to. So I think maybe some of it might be just a function of my personality. Like I've always been kind of attractive to things that you can kind of like explain to an undergrad or something.
I read that you said that in your quant interview. Yeah, so this never changed for you?
I mean, of course, like sometimes I'm willing to use anything to try to solve the problem. I mean, anything that I know. So it's not like I'm not a nut. Like, I'm only going to use certain kinds of techniques and they have to be simple techniques. Like, I'm interested in results. So, I use kind of any method I can to, to further my cause. So I'm just saying like the proof might not be, completely explainable or something to an undergrad. But I always try. I mean, yeah, I like the idea. I mean, writing, uh, making it as concrete as you can. I mean, it's a great question. It's hard to know because there's some like, balance between like you want to be concise or you want to like, you don't want to just like, I don't know, do like 100 cases if you can just have like one abstract idea that's gonna, take care of it. So yeah, I mean, I try to be concrete when I can, and sometimes a little bit of abstraction is really good.
How do you feel about motives, as you said? So these more abstract parts of math, are you curious about them or you don't like them at all?
No, I like them. It's funny. I was visiting the IAS and I was talking a lot to Ellen Eischen, who's a number theorist, and it's sort of like an information exchange. Like I was telling her about geometry and discrete groups, and she was telling me about L series and things like modular forms and things like that. And I just I mean I can't say I remembered everything that she said, but it was just amazing. You felt like you're just looking at this kind of beautiful monument, that just really like, just goes on and there's all these, kind of cross connections between things which, don't seem to have any reason to be related. And I have this feeling that, mathematics is not really exactly meant for humans. Like, it's entertaining people on other planets who are much smarter than we are. And, I would imagine that, great intellects sort of see connections between all kinds of things. And I mean, so yeah, I get a sense of awe when I look at, more of, just things that kind of pile up on top of each other and really, really work. I mean, some of that stuff, I know some things like, I know things a little bit about like theta series and modular forms. And, there's some areas that I've just kind of studied on my own out of curiosity. So it's not like I'm interested in kind of a lot of different kinds of math. Um, I mean, some, if it's too, I mean, often it'll kind of go outside my range of understanding, and then I don't know what to think. I mean, it's like a dog listening to people talk. I mean, you just hear, you hear noise, and every once in a while you might pick out a word or two, but so sort of some areas of math, I just feel like, well, yeah, I mean, I needed like 10 more years of grad school or something to appreciate this. Um, it's just how it is. Like there's kind of too much, um, there's so much knowledge and a lot of it is kind of very, you know, but um, it's one of those things where, I mean, yeah, I'd say I think it's kind of beautiful and some of the really abstract stuff I just, yeah, I think it's beautiful, but I can't really enter into it or something because I just don't have the background.
I see. No, I understand. I was just I understand that you work on other areas of math. I was just curious how you feel about things like that. So now I know that you appreciate it. Cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's funny. Like when I was in college, I started like learning algebraic topology, and I learned more. And for a while, when I went to graduate school, I thought maybe I'll do algebraic topology. I went to Princeton, and I was thinking, well, maybe I'll work with Carlson or something. And then we took a class, we had a reading course with Carlson on like Steenrod squaring operations and spectral sequences, things like that. And like for the first few weeks, there was like we're really gung ho, and then gradually, we just sort of like weren't doing the reading, and then like we didn't even bring the book, and like it just kind of I sort of felt like I just it kind of got too abstract. I felt like the things I liked about topology were the like more visual things, and then like I just kind of never, I couldn't get into things like Steenrod squaring operations and spectral
Yeah,
sequences.
but I think okay, maybe I shouldn't say this out loud, but I think it's a rather technical bit. So it is only understandable that you didn't get very excited by this.
Right. It was just sort of like it became, yeah. I mean, it was like for a while there was this great feeling like you're building these machines, like these big machines, which are powerful. Like they'll answer, they'll solve sort of like many questions at the same time, and like that was like a pretty exhilarating feeling. And so I remember at some point having those kinds of thoughts, like it's really cool to have machines that big theories that just kind of solve all kinds of problems. But at some point I just felt like I don't know, like I couldn't, like it wasn't for me or something like that. And also, um, Thurston was there at Princeton, and I kind of like got really attracted to the kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course, that's only understandable. But about topology, I think it's not that it's not for you. It depends a lot on the topic within topology that is being explained and on how to explain it. So, like, if I were teaching a topology course, I would take a different part of topology, I guess.
Right?
So,
Yeah, that's right. Right. I kind of, it could have been like I just was sort of going in this like algebraic direction, and I didn't like it so much. I mean, there wasn't a ton of guidance in, in grad school, so like you just kind of, I mean, you just kind of pick the next thing to read. I didn't really have a good overview of what I was doing. It was more like just picking the next thing.
is there anything you wanted to? So, I didn't know if I would ask you anything about being Thurston's student because I imagine you may have been asked about this a lot. But like, is there something you'd like to tell?
I mean, he was a nice guy. He was a pretty nice guy, and I was super intimidated by him. I mean, that was like was it, like it was, I don't know, like a god or something. And so um he he was very laissez-faire as an advisor. He would let you do whatever you wanted. I mean, and he encouraged it. I remember like the one time I got advice, I said like, well, I don't really know like what to work on at all. And he said, why don't you write down a list of 10 things that you're interested in, and we'll go from there. And so I did. I wrote down a list of 10 things, and a week later I gave it to him, and he looked at it and he said, seems like a good list. And he also did this with another one of his students much, much later. Um, so it was, I mean, so, he had some method like that. Talking to him was like this experience of like falling off a log. Like he would just start talking, and like you'd at the beginning you'd sort of understand it, and then but it actually was very good training because it, like after a while I kind of got the courage to just say like, look, I don't know what that is. Can you just repeat that, or just slow down, or and so it's in some sense like by the end I learned to talk to Thurston. and this was great. This was like a lifetime lesson. I mean, so now I'm like, I feel like I'm good at talking to people about math, because I'm willing to stop them and say, look, I just, I don't know what you're talking about. Um, and so that was maybe, I mean, and I mean, and then like, I mean, the other, well, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, he also had this funny quality where like, you felt like he always knew where the adventure was going. Like you're saying, well, I'm looking for buried treasure. And he'll just say like third drawer on the left in the fifth room on the castle in the castle. And then like you go for like 6 months and you sort of led to other countries and, and then you finally get to the castle. Yeah, you're in the fifth room, this kind of thing. Like it's sort of like he wouldn't sort of explain any of the steps, but there'd be some kind of final insight that he would explain. And like years later, you kind of realize that he sort of you know you kind of saw the whole thing. At least in the kind of things he did. I mean, he wasn't like it was. I mean, I veered off and done a lot of things that Thurston didn't work on, but in things like like three manifolds, let's say, or you know mapping class group or things for Teichmuller theory, like things like that.
But
Like
this is so interesting. So some people whose advisors are particularly successful mathematicians say that it was discouraging that like the person next to you always knew the final insight.
yeah.
So, but you're describing it in such a beautiful
Well, I
way.
mean, it was. I mean, I think it was one of those things where like you you kind of you actually you. I mean, you talk about this a little bit in some of your videos about this worry, like, well, I'm not, the greatest, I'm not Gauss. I'm, so what's the point or something? But I guess I kind of made peace with that in a way. Like at Princeton, I mean, it was, there was like lots of super smart people around and, I just, and, in Thurston, yeah, I mean, and also he didn't really kind of like step on your toes. I mean, he wasn't working on, I felt like it differently. Like I just felt like there were challenges, like there were problems I wanted to solve. And so that aspect didn't I mean, aside from like being very intimidated and feeling like, every 5 minutes I talk to him, it's like I'm setting math back 5 minutes or something like, because I'm preparing, so, but I mean, and I mean, like later in life, I sort of feel like this was just like an incredible privilege. Like, I got to work with this great mind. I mean, I just got to know him or something. And, like, just one of the most unusual minds on the planet or something. And, like, so in a way, like later, now I kind of feel like this was like a great privilege. I mean, it wasn't all great. Like, he wasn't good at administrative things. Like it was extremely, all his students would tell me, like, it was extremely hard to get him to write you a letter of recommendation. Like things like that. Like he just, you know, I think just that there were so many demands on his time that, like he didn't, so it wasn't, I mean, I'm not saying it was all, and also there's some amount of like sunny recall where, like, like probably in grad school I was like generally not, most people I talked to would say they weren't like that happy in grad school or something. So, I'm looking back on it now where, from is sort of like a much older age and, thinking like, yeah, I mean, this was great. Like what an opportunity. I mean, you know, I didn't, maybe it was worse. Like my office mate was this guy, Oded Schramm, who, um, invented, what's now called Schramm-Loevner evolution. And, he died at age 44, I mean, in a like rock climbing accident. So, but like this guy, I got interested in this thing called circle packings in grad school, and and also Jed and I were playing squash, and I wasn't making much progress on circle packings, and then whenever we play squash, I would tell Oded what I was working on, and eventually he got interested, and then eventually he kind of like completely cleaned out this field. I mean, before he invented SLE, he just like kind of revolutionized this subject and just proved all kinds. So I mean, this was kind of like pretty hard to watch. Like,
Do you have any advice for my audience, which, as I mentioned in my other videos, regularly sends me emails of the form, what if I feel like I'm not the next Gauss? What should I do? I'm Like, do
I
you
mean,
have
I
any
think
advice?
I guess the what I would say is that mathematics is extremely tree-like, and most of it is unexplored. There's some, like, it's like a forest or something, and there's some, like, long trails that go into the forest, but almost everything is unexplored, and it doesn't necessarily take the smartest person in the world to explore new terrain. You have to think, like, it's like we're almost completely surrounded by ignorance. Like, we don't know much of anything, and part of the problem is almost like we don't know what we don't know. Like, I think there's probably, like, new areas of mathematics that are just everywhere around us, and you don't need to be the smartest person in the world to find something new. You know, it's probably a bad idea, maybe, like, if you find out, I mean, to directly compete maybe with, like, if there's some, famous problem, you shouldn't, like, it's probably a bad career move to just, like, try to outcompete, people. But just to be able to do something interesting, like, maybe that's a better criterion. Like, it's not like these things. That's what I mean. Like, I don't think math is kind of linearly ordered. I think that there's all kinds of things and all kinds of directions you could go, and new things come up all the time, like tropical geometry and cluster algebras. These are like 21st century inventions, basically.
Cluster algebras are new.
I think cluster algebras are pretty new. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fomin and Zalvinsky. I mean, the guy, they invent the guys who invented it are, you know, not 10 years older than me or something. So that would be my advice. Like, just think that things aren't so much linearly ordered, and there's all kinds of different minds, and you don't. I mean, it's not it's not so much competition. It's more like a kind of a, I don't know. I think of it kind of like a big carnival or something, and there's lots of different rides you can take, and games you can try. So you don't, like, sure, there might be some guy who's, like, walking the slap line every, perfectly or something. I mean, there might be some people, but you don't have to do exactly what they're doing. You can try all kinds of things.
You have such a happy approach to math. I love it.
There's so many unsolved problems. I mean, and even if you can't think of them yourself, I mean, there's even things like problem lists, and there's all kinds of things, and so that's what I would say. Like, think of it. There's, like, a lot of room in mathematics. I mean, I agree. You mentioned this too. Like, there's this practical matter. Like, at some point, if you want to get paid to do it, like, you have to get a professorship or something. Or I think probably it's worth going for. Like, if you have some strong drive to do something, you should, certainly through grad school. Like if you think you want to go to graduate school, I think you should. And I mean, you can decide. Like, I would say, like, keep postponing the decision whether or not to stay in math. Like, right? Just
Quote from a person who loves to keep doing the thing that he is doing.
yeah, right. Just right. Just like, okay. I want. I mean, I remember wanting to quit when I was a postdoc. I mean, I remember, yeah, I don't know. I thought that, maybe I'll try being a forest ranger, but I didn't know anything about being a
Who?
forest
Forest
ranger.
Ranger?
Yeah, I didn't know anything
Amazing.
about it, but I thought, well, this would be kind of, maybe I would like that, just like, sitting around in the forest or something. I mean, I didn't really understand what was involved in the job, but anyway, but I was a postdoc at MSRI at Berkeley at the time, and then I thought, well, I shouldn't quit now because I'm getting this paycheck, and even if I don't do anything, I'm still gonna get paid till the end of the year. So why would I shoot myself? Like, I could always be a forest ranger later or something. So so it's like, I'm not saying, like, I was always, I mean, in the beginning of my career, I frequently wanted to quit, and I felt like it wasn't working out. And I mean, in hindsight, I think it was actually working out pretty well. But when you're going through it, you have a lot more doubts, and I think, um, but so, uh, but some of it, I mean, I guess, well, I don't know. I mean, for math, yeah, I think you have to really have a strong desire to do it. Yeah, and I mean, it is a lot of hard work, and again, most of it is sort of fruitless.
So I had some of the most adventurous times in forests around MSRI, because once I went for a walk just very close to the institute, and I was on a narrow path, and another creature was on the narrow path, and we had like nowhere to go left or right. So I just met with that creature, and well, I did not know at the time, but so it looked like a wolf. And so I didn't know what to do. And I think, an Alice in Wonderland move. I literally said out loud, "Hi, are you a wolf?" And the creature did not move or react. So I was like, okay, maybe that's the wrong guess. But then further other people came from behind and they're like, "Oh, a coyote," and then it's ran away. So it was a coyote. Yeah.
Yeah, those things aren't as dangerous, I think.
But
Well,
now I know that my reaction when I think I see a wolf is to say, "Hi, are you a wolf?" So speaking of funny things, Richard, you're the first person I know whose wiki page contains information about a prank you made on April 1st. Could you tell us about it, if it's
oh
not a
yeah,
secret?
that was really funny. And actually, I mean, so yeah, yeah, I got the idea that it would be funny. I always think about random choices. I mean, even I remember like in college thinking like, you if you decide where you want to go to dinner or what to do, you should decide randomly. Like indecision was a big problem for some reason. Like and so then I got the idea that and also college admissions seemed somewhat, well, I don't know, let's just say weird or perplexing. Like you get a bunch of applications and it's very, very hard to tell the difference between them. And, it's also very hard to tell who wrote the applications. It's sort of, no, I mean, people get coaches, like they'll write their
Oh,
essays.
really?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. In the US, totally.
Well,
And so anyway, you get all these out and, and also people do things specifically to get into college. They'll join the glee club or the chess team. And well, not because they like,
wait, Glee Club is not just a series; it's more than that.
no, but I just mean no, the glee club. No, it's a singing,
Do they exist in reality?
I
Wait, I
think
thought it
so.
was
Well, I was just,
really.
making it up as an example, but piano club or just a million and one things. And so I got the idea that, people should just be admitted randomly. Um, they should just do admissions sort of random. Like, I mean, there's like a few, maybe there's like some people at the top where they obviously, should get in, and then some people who should obviously be rejected. But then there's like sort of a large group of people where it's very hard to make distinctions amongst them. And there was actually another guy at Princeton, maybe his name was, I think his name was, I want to say Conley, but I'm not sure. But he actually, somewhat after my prank, he wrote an op-ed about this, about random admissions. Anyway, my prank was I said that I was on some university committee and we were, we were sort of, we noticed that like Harvard had started doing random admissions. I thought this would be kind of funny. Like the other Ivy League schools like Brown, and they'll often follow Harvard's lead. And so I said, well, Harvard started and they were admitted like 2%. And then, then Princeton said, well, we're going to do 4%. And then, Columbia said, we're going to do 8%. And, and then I sort of made up some big number, like, Brown is going to do like, 30% random admissions next year. I just sort of built up. And then, but I was writing this, like, my point was, I was just like, well, the committee just wants me to get feedback on your, from my colleagues about what you think. And I mean, and then, then I said something at the bottom, like, if you have more questions about the policy, go to this website. And then, and then when you click on the link or something, or it just says, April Fools. It tied up my email for hours. Like I got so many, replies. I mean, the thing I regret is that I just sent this to the math department. What I mean is it was sort of a tempest in a teapot. I mean, it was a great idea, which I just not like, I didn't have access. I didn't know how to send a university-wide mail, but it would have been just fabulous if it had been the whole university. I mean, it would have, I mean, and I actually was only kind of half joking. I don't think it's such a bad thing. I mean, anyway, it was great. I mean, it was just, I can, yeah, I could probably dig it up. I mean, and mail you I still
But
have
what
a,
did people write to you? What did people answer? What's
well, people, most people had a lot of questions. just say, well, all my answers are like, well, if you want these questions answered, just click on this link. You know, and so, you know, but people had a lot of. I mean, it certainly stirred up strong emotions. I mean, um, I actually think we should anyway. This essay that this guy, I wish I could. I'm kind of blanking on his name, Conley possibly, but he was a sociologist at Princeton, and he had all kinds of good points in his essay. And I had I think he wrote this some years after I did. I got in touch with him, and we had some correspondence about this. But there are some good points. Like for one thing, it helps you save face. Like if you get rejected from some university where you think you really belong, you just say, "Well, look, I just didn't. I lost out on the lottery. I didn't. It's not really a reflection on you." And I also think it would save a lot of time, like where people are making these very fine distinctions, but it's kind of meaningless. Like you can't like you're looking at two candidates who are who in some overall sense are about the same. And
But wait a sec. So you would say that some people would still be in the top, right? Whom
yeah,
you would
yeah,
definitely
that's what I
take.
think.
So
Yeah.
I think in terms of self-esteem, I would feel bad. Let's say I'm applying. I would feel
Well, I see.
bad
You
that
might
I'm
think
not
like, oh,
like
I'm just not in
definitely.
the. Yeah. Well, he didn't formulate it this way. It's one of these things where like there's lots of debates about how it should be done. And I mean, um, from what I've seen of it, I sort of feel like that it. I mean, it's just very hard to tell. Like, I mean, at some point I stopped. At some point I refused to read college admissions because I felt like I didn't like it upset me a lot that I didn't know that whether or not somebody was getting help writing the essays and things like that. Like maybe it's being too idealistic. Um, like rather than just agree to do the admissions, I just
So how is it for you guys? Like, do they read these essays in real time, or they have to
no, no,
submit
no, no,
them?
no, no. These things are prepared in advance.
Oh,
So there's even I think a common app where there'll be you know like a typical question would be like describe a situation where you overcame adversity or something like that.
but I don't understand. We do this like in Russia. This would be part of an exam where you do it in real time.
Yeah, well, that's a great idea. I'd love that. Yeah, that's great because then the way it is done in the US, like, people get these questions and then they have a month or so or who knows how long to respond. And, so they can write it and, and then they, they can show it to people and people can say, well, maybe this isn't
Okay,
really a
that's really weird. This is a really weird system,
yeah, I mean,
I should
so
say.
I think that's not a good system. Like, I think you should just, yeah, I mean, be locked in a room and, you have to just, just do it yourself, but it's not like that. So anyway, I got pretty frustrated with this kind of thing.
But also, like now when we have ChatGPT, what's the point at all of doing it during a month? Like,
Yeah, well, that's a pretty recent problem. I mean, it's
okay, so this means that the system will change because now I think it became completely unreasonable. Did you try other pranks or not really?
I've actually nothing I think I should admit to.
Okay, okay.
Like, I mean,
People are still figuring it out.
no, 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 no. I mean, like, things in my youth. I mean, my I mean, my friend and I at Princeton, we did something that involved the Princeton dining hall that I want to say what, but I mean nothing bad, but I just want to say like we sneaking around and things like that. I mean nothing right. I mean I remember I made this in grad school. I made this door opener. It was a mechanical device that would go underneath the door and open it from the like a kind of a thin arm that and it has just strings. So I would go in everywhere. I mean, I never did anything bad, but we could go up to the 13th floor lounge or something, and I could get in. So stuff like little things like that. But I was not a serious prankster. I mean,
This sounds pretty fun.
in the scheme of things, I mean, hardly any pranks at all.
No, come on. Door opener sounds very cool.
Yeah, yeah, that was fun. I remember before I had written my thesis, I thought, well, maybe if I don't write a thesis, I can apply to the engineering department and like use the door opener as my engineering thesis.
So could you maybe for the end tell us about one more weird creative thing that you did? Because I think we've learned accidentally about your door opener and other things. So anything else?
I don't know. I mean, I like to make masks. I've made some nice Halloween masks where
Wow.
I mean, I can actually, I can show you one if you want to. I have to
Yes,
run
please do.
downstairs. I'll be right back. I mean, I'll show
Please.
you.
And come back being very scary.